Hi, welcome to the Rittner Floral School in Boston, Mass. I'm Dr. Steve Rittner, and it's a pleasure to welcome you into one of our classrooms today. We've got a very neat lesson planned for you, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Now, I know I say that all the time, but I mean it. I really do think you're going to enjoy it, because what we're going to be doing today is a very, very neat arrangement for fall. It's the fall of the year, and I love the passage of the seasons because every season brings with it unique symbols, unique colors, unique materials that we can play with in our designing. And in doing a fall design, I think you can see we picked a container that definitely feels fall. It has red, it has browns in it, it has a certain kind of gravitas that's perfect for the season. We've got it filled with ballast. You can either use small pebbles, rocks, or used foam fragments that you want to recycle. We've got some foam on the top, and we're just about ready to go on this design. And I think, my viewer, you're going to really find it interesting. Now, one of the things that we've noticed in the last few years around the fall is that there are all kinds of little pumpkins, gourds, things that are available to us. And we've been really enjoying taking some of these items and actually working them into our fall designs because we feel it adds an interesting component to our design, and they mix very, very well with our flowers. And so we're going to do that today. And in order to work with it, we've got some of these, and you'll notice what I've done. I've taken a pick, a very, very thick pick, and I poked it right into the back so that I have an actual little gourd pumpkin, and I'm ready to go with it, and I'm pushing this right in here. And this is going to serve as my starting point on this arrangement. In other words, I've got one that is up here. I'm going to take another one and place it down here. Notice that it is slightly to one side of the base. In other words, it's not smack dab in the middle. One is on the top, one is on the side, and it's centered a little bit more to the side of our design. And that's how we're going to start. We're going to start with that as our center. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start playing with some of our flowers. And my viewer, we've got some very, very neat materials to play with today. To me, one of the nice things about late summer and early fall is this: dahlias. They are absolutely amazing. One of my favorite flowers. Of course, my students tease me. They say, Dr. Steve, there isn't a flower out there that isn't one of your favorite flowers. And you know something? They may actually have a point. Every particular flower brings something very, very unique to the design table. And I really like the look of dahlias, and I think that they work so very, very nicely around this time of the year. And I like to make use of them, and I think you're going to find that when you start playing with your dahlias on something like this, you can come up with something that is really, really neat. And what I'm going to be making today is going to be pretty much what I would call a one-sided kind of design. In other words, it's got a front, it's got a back. It's going to be concentrated pretty much on one side of the arrangement. And notice that I'm taking my dahlias and I'm working a line of them, because this is going to be essentially what I would call an elevated horizontal. These kinds of designs can be really showy. They're quick, they're easy, they're fun to do. And I think, my viewer, you're going to really enjoy not only watching the process as this thing comes together, but also the ability to do some of these things on your own, because they really do enable you to come up with some very, very cool effects. So what I'm doing, my viewer, is I'm just taking my flowers. I am gradually working them, coming from the left over towards the right of my design. And you can see it's coming together very, very nicely for me. I love this particular flower. I love the fact that they are available around now. And I like to be able to use these around this time of the year. I wish we had them all throughout the year, because they are such very, very neat materials to play with. And notice I'm just working my way across with my dahlias. So this is really giving me the overall framework and shape of the design, just as our little gourd pumpkins are kind of setting the beginning part of the unit. This is really kind of giving us the overall framework that we have. Now, we got a lot of air conditioning within this, but I'm not going to let it stay air conditioned. We're going to add a few more things to it And again, I like making use of things that are available around this time of the year. We have here in New England some amazing hydrangea. These are called the native hydrangea. They are a really, really great flower. We get them in at this time of the year. They have a unique factor in that not only do they look great, but they dry, and many of our other hydrangea do not. This one will actually dry rather than wilt, so it really gives us a very, very neat effect. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start mixing some of my native hydrangea into my design, and you'll notice, my viewer, this is going to fill in very nicely so that my arrangement, which up till now possibly feels rather air-conditioned, you'll notice it's going to stop feeling air-conditioned very, very quickly because I'm taking some of these hydrangea and working them in. So we're really getting a very, very pretty effect on this. I can take one, place it here, another, place it there. I'm going to continue the process of doing this over towards the other side of the arrangement. In other words, I'm doing something very, very similar with my hydrangea that I did with my dahlias, taking them and working them from left to right. In other words, almost feel like you're reading a sentence in a book. I'm basically taking my hydrangea and then just working it in between, gradually filling in the spaces so that by the time we get through, this thing is not going to feel totally air-conditioned. So notice I'm just working my way across here, 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 here. I'm going to put something over onto this side as well so that we've got another line formed using our hydrangea. So I'm just being very, very careful. I don't have a lot of foam area to work on, but I think you can see, my viewer, this is coming along very, very nicely for me. Now, what other interesting things do we have? Oh, well, around this time of the year, and of course throughout the year, we also have a very nice flower. This is not unique to the fall, but it is something we can get pretty much throughout the season, and throughout all of the seasons we can get Fujis. I love Fujis. And we can get our Fujis in yellow, we can get them in white, we can get them in green, we can also get them in other colors too. Sometimes we get them in beiges and browns, but this is really, really a very, very pretty kind of green hydrangea. And so what I'm going to do, not a green hydrangea, green Fuji, and what I'm going to do, my viewer, is I'm going to work some of my green. And I don't have as many of these, so I'm going to take this, and I think I'm going to make this just a little bit shorter, my viewer. I'm going to work this one in right here over on the top. I'm going to take a second Fuji, and I'm going to work my second Fuji in also over here on the top. Because I don't have quite as many of these on my design bench, I'm going to concentrate them more towards the center of the arrangement. In other words, you'll notice I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my dahlias. I have plenty of my hydrangea, but my Fuji, I only have a few. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to concentrate it here in towards the center of the design. And that way our attention is drawn to it along with our little gourd pumpkins that we have there in place. Now let's see, what other mischief can we do on this design? I know what we're going to do. We're going to use another one of our favorite flowers. This is definitely one of my favorite. Sunflower. Sunflower. They are an amazing flower. They are absolutely beautiful. It is probably the most optimistic flower there is, the bright yellow. We just love looking at it. And I think that's one reason why they use so many patterns of sunflowers in drapes, in tablecloths, in napkins, even in dishes that are used sometimes in our kitchenettes. Because when you get up in the morning, you like to feel something that's optimistic. And this definitely has an optimistic kind of feel to it. And so what I'm going to do, my viewer, is I'm going to start playing with some of my sunflowers. These, believe it or not, are the mini sunflowers. In other words, these are kind of a smaller version of our sunflower. They do have mediums and they do have large, so that there are other sunflowers that are out there that we can get. And you'll notice that I'm taking the sunflowers, I'm placing them in, I'm coming up with a very, very pretty effect using my sunflowers. And I'm just kind of letting it drip and droop here so that it is becoming part of our design. And I'm going to place another one. In other words, what I'm doing is I'm kind of working my way across from the left side over to the right side. Each time on this, my viewer, I'm doing a very similar process. In other words, think about it. I started with the dahlias, worked from left to right. Then I started with my hydrangea and worked to left to right. I've concentrated the things that I don't have that much of, the Fujis and the little gourds, in towards the center, using them as a focal. But now I'm taking more of my sunflowers and I'm working my sunflowers again from left to right on this arrangement. I think you'll find that doing it this way, you can come up with some very, very pretty effects to your arrangement, and it's not excessively hard. These things are very, very easy to do, and yet they give a really, really pretty kind of an effect to our design. They really come together very, very nicely. And then again, I'm going to work another sunflower coming out over here. So you'll notice that I have one working from left towards the right on this. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit so they're not fighting with each other, and so that we have both our sunflower and our hydrangea in place. And so this is working over there. Notice how this is working so well. And you can see a visual complexity. This creates one line. This creates another kind of line. This creates a third one. So you've got a lot of things that are going on here in this particular arrangement. Now I could stop at this point if I wanted to, but wait, there's more. I'm going to play with this just a little bit more. I have one of my favorite foliages here. This happens to be a favorite of mine. A lot of people love this one. This, of course, is our seeded eucalyptus. It is an amazing foliage because it's got these flat little leaves. They're kind of a silvery green, and then you have the little pods. It really works very, very nicely. It works well as an accent, and I'm going to use some of this stuff in our arrangement. And I think, my viewer, you're going to see that the way I'm using it, this will give a really, really cool effect to our design. So I'm going to take a little bit of our seeded euc. I'm going to place it here. I'm going to just intertwine it into the arrangement. So notice that by doing it this way, it gives me a texture that otherwise I wouldn't have. I'm also using it to basically fill in very nicely any of the holes, any of the spaces that I might have. But make no doubt about it, my viewer, this is really going to help add to the overall ambiance of our arrangement. So I've worked a little here, and it makes it visually a lot more complex. I'm all in favor of visual complexity, even though I believe very strongly that floral designing should be quick, easy, and fun. At the same token, things that have a little more visual complexity often are far more interesting to look at. People look at them, they'll admire them, they'll say, wow, that's interesting, it's kind of cool. They're not always sure why, but it's not something that the viewer has to worry about, but it is something, my viewer, that you as the designer should be concerned about, because you want people to look at these things and get an interesting reaction to them and wonder what was done on it, and think, wow, this is a really interesting looking floral piece. And so one way you can do that is by creating what I call greater visual complexity. We can do floral designing and make it quick, easy, and fun, and yet even while we're making our designs quick, easy, and fun, we can come up with a greater degree of visual complexity in the way that we're putting these things together. I really don't need all that much more. I think that this is coming out really, really nicely for us. So I'm going to work one more little piece over here as an accent. Now, obviously, I've left the back part of the design kind of open. If I were going to be using this for any purpose, I would add some of my foliage or perhaps a little moss around the back side, because it is a one-sided piece, but still, we do want the backside to be covered and finished, and that's considered important. I do have a couple more little pieces of my, my hydrangea, so I'm going to work a little hydrangea here and another little piece of hydrangea in here, so it kind of complements the arrangement. So what do you think, my viewer? An amazing design. It is ideal for the fall season. Shape-wise, what we're doing is something that is kind of horizontal, but I'm not keeping it, if you'll notice, my viewer, it's not perfectly symmetrical. If I kept it exactly even, it would be boring. So I've deliberately left something a little bit lower. I'm coming up. I've got a kind of an interesting curved line coming through with my sunflowers. I've got another line with my dahlias, another with my hydrangea, some interesting things going on in the focal area. It is a design that is an elevated horizontal, but it is being done in such a way so it doesn't become boring and it has visual complexity. What do you think? Quick, easy, and fun. That's the Rittner Floral School way. I hope, my viewer, that you enjoyed this quick presentation. We certainly enjoyed presenting it to you. By all means, keep watching our series of videos, and hey, take a course with us. I think you'd find that that would be even more fun. On behalf of all of us here at Rittners Floral School, I'm Dr. Steve Rittner. We thank you for coming in and visiting our school today. Thank you.